Hello! I think my audio is enabled, and I'm about to begin with the starting soon window. Slowly exploring the OBS streaming tool. Somewhat afflicted by allergies today. Hopefully that is not an obstacle. Let us see what happens. Okay. Aha, a screen has appeared. Perfect. Hey Namvu, 7 a.m. Good morning to you. Bright and early. Yeah, it's 8 p.m. here on the East Coast of the US. Currently in North Carolina. How are you doing today? I know, I did it again. I'm going crazy. I don't know, why not? It's addicting. Well, really, I want to keep working on this project. And how can I do that? If I feel like I'm sort of cheating on everyone at this point. Infidelity. So I haven't worked on it, and yeah, I'm just going to stumble along live. Welcome back. It's good to have you. I can't believe you're coming back. I'm very honored. Of course, no pressure to remain or to chat or any of those things, but brightens my day. I wish I gave streaming more of a shot earlier. I did it like once or twice. The first two times you do it, you almost, I mean, for me personally, you you speak differently than you do usually. I probably will still do that, but the first couple times I spoke in this like ASMR voice, like I just started talking really close to the mic and in a very monotonous tone, and I didn't mean to do that. It just kind of happened because of the strangeness of talking to yourself for so long. But I can see one might get used to talking out loud and just sort of letting your thoughts flow in a logorrheic manner. Um, and yeah, that could be fun. I'm sure I've very far to go. Uh, but I even bought a boom stand today, which I want for other reasons. So I'm investing. I've spent so far. I just spent some money, $100 on a mic stand. So I'm in it. I'm invested for life. Um, Apologies also if I sniffle. I hope I don't sniffle. But the pollen, the allergens were out assailing me today. But yeah, let's keep going. I'm not sure if anyone who's here was here last time, so I will recap for both you and myself. Basically, the goal is to build a terminal UI, and I want the DSL to mirror that of SwiftUI. So I have an example here of what SwiftUI sort of looks like. This obviously will not work in Rust, totally different syntax, but we've made some progress, and I have some example down. Where's my ergonomics? Yes. Down here is my example of I would want this to render. This should render as something like this. It's a vertical stack of 3 horizontal stacks. So when you have a vertical stack, the views will be stacked vertically, and when you have a horizontal stack, they will be stacked horizontally. And I want to be able to do things like putting padding around certain things. So if I put a padding of 2, this whole thing should be indented, and also there'd be a couple of lines above it as well, and beneath it, and so on and so forth. This is for rendering to a terminal. Maybe I could do dot border or bordered or something, and then we'd see a little ASCII border around this whole thing. I'm going to try to get the AI draw an ASCII border around this. Come on, AI, come on, AI, come on. Yes. AI is amazing. And of course, yeah, those things as well. So that's the dream, to have a little declarative syntax like that. The bordered keyword does not exist yet. And I'm guessing this is angry because it's not in correct docstring position, so I'll just use 2 dashes, 2 slashes. And there we go. So that would be what we're going for. And because I don't really know Rust, we were spending some time exploring what is even possible here. I looked at a couple of libraries for inspiration about what different directions we can go in, and there's this one library called RUI, which seems to take a SwiftUI approach to its interface. And then there's also one called Ratatouille, which is a good pun there, that we're also going to steal some stuff from. So yeah, just a bunch of pilfering going on to learn Rust. So this works. We can build some basic composed views and we explored a little bit the Rust performance model a little bit, or how different options we have, and to minimize allocations, because we want to kind of embrace what Rust is known for. And experiment and learn. That's really that's the goal. Experiment, learn, have some fun. So I think where we ended up was, now that we can build some basic views, is we want to actually render these things and render them to the real terminal, and also maybe render them to some sort of test interface so we can actually explore what if this works or not. And so I think the last thing I may have written at the end of last night, and by the way, let me know if this text is too small. I don't know if it is. Maybe I'll bump it up one more. But just let me know in the chat if you can see or not see. So what do we have? We have a test of the size method here, which if we take hello world and we add some padding, then the result of that view should be in a certain size here. The width should be the length of the text plus 3, essentially, on either side, which is, I guess, plus 7 here. Yeah, why is it plus 3 and plus 7 instead of plus 6? I'm a little confused, actually. What have I done? Is that test breaking? It is. It says 7, should be 8. This is what's broken. Is that correct? I don't think so. In fact, I would imagine that 3, let's see. There we go. Okay, my test was just wrong. So it should be, yes, padded 3 above. So whatever the width of the text is, plus 6, 3 for padding on each side, and then 1 for the text itself and 3 padding vertically. And that passes. And the next test we're going to write is in trying to actually get this to render something. And right now it explodes. It says implement rendering, because I haven't done that. So we need to figure out what that's going to look like. I believe I began to write a buffer type, which is going to be represents the terminal buffer, the 2D array of cells on the screen. Yippee. And sure, this yeah, and so we're just we made this type, and we have a couple of methods for converting to an XY coordinate system into this sort of flattened one-dimensional array, sort of map back and forth between those two representations for performance reasons. So we're not using a two-dimensional array, but we're flattening them out into a single array to do rusty performance-y things. Okay, so let's actually think about what to do next. That's all my catch-up. So I need to get a string out of this. And so what I'm thinking is we just draw this to the buffer somehow, and then get the buffer to turn itself into a string. So there's a couple ways of doing this, but I think what we want to say is our view, which is our padded text node here, should have a render method that accepts two things: the terminal size, which is basically the size of the terminal window, how much room is available to render it. So if I brought up a terminal here and maybe make a new one, whatever, we'd get as many rows. We'd offered as many rows as we had horizontal space in our terminal, and as many columns. The width would be determined by the width of the terminal. The height would be determined by the height of the available terminal window. And usually in these kinds of TUI systems, when you resize your terminal, it will re-render your application. Call its render method again with a new size. So we'll offer it all the space that's available at the start, at the top. And we'll also give it the buffer. In fact, a mutable reference to the buffer, which I think I have to do it like that. I'm not sure if I actually have to label that here. We'll see what happens. So our view trait needs a render method on it, I believe. And I think what you can do, no, this will not, technically you can say generate render method, but I think this is going to put it on the padding node. But anyway, I'll steal that. I like that feature of the Rust analyzer. That's pretty nifty. IntelliJ has that for Scala, and I use that all the time. And now I just need to organize this thing better. View. So yes, this needs a render method, which will take the terminal size, or the area, and then a buffer, but not just a regular buffer, but a mutable reference to a buffer, because it's going to draw to it and modify it. And I think we actually want something more than size as well. But let's see real quick what's broken. So yeah, basically everything needs an implementation now of the render method. And now this needs a buffer, which we haven't made. So let's say let mute buffer equals a new buffer. And the cells, oh, I should probably have a method on the buffer to create one of a certain size. So let's do that. I also want the buffer to actually know its size. So the buffer is going to have a size. And I'm going to have a new method that will take, turn Copilot back on. But I know I want it to take a width and a height. And then it can create a buffer where the size is obviously has a width and height. And then there's a vector that's, I think, pre-sized for that height, pre-allocated for that height. That's not exactly what I want. I want height times width is the size I want to pre-allocate. But also, I want all of those to be filled actually with empty spaces. This vector should be initialized with spaces in each cell instead of just an empty string. And I'm not sure how vec works. I'm guessing this is like it's going to, because this is a macro, I'm assuming lm vec from lm. I'm pretty sure I can't jump to that. Yeah, I don't, unfortunately, macros, you can't really jump around in them terribly well, which is one of my least favorite features of them. I cannot command click here. But I'm pretty sure that's going to be a different string in each one. So it'll basically, it's almost like it's lazier, but this is like a biname parameter or something, which it is because it's a macro. I think. Let me look at that real quick again. From lm. I wonder. Maybe I could just do vec from lm. No. I would like to see what that does. Vec, std, vec from lm. Is that a method? Yes. Clone. Okay, so I believe it will clone each item. That probably is what the implication is there. I can't really see, but because it is a clone trait, it must be cloning it. So that's what I want. Anyway, I trust the signature. That's the only thing that really makes sense there. Okay, so down here, we will make a new buffer of the right size and pass that along mutably. And then at the end, we need to say something like buffer.asStir. Seems to be a method that I've seen around. And that should render it to a string. And that should be expected. So the word Rust with one padding on either side should turn into that string joined. And yeah, so let's see if we can just get the AI to do this stuff. Cells join with a new line. Not quite right, because we want this to each row of the initial area should be on its own line. So, and I am leaning heavily on AI because I don't know Rust methods. So this is my way of learning it while building something. So we're creating an iterator out of all the cells. It's not exactly what we want at all. So that's fine. We just have to now use thinking. Actually, what I think I can do is, I think there's a method called chunk by aha. All right, that's pretty cool. I think that'll work. We're going to get a sub iterator for each row will be an array of strings that are each the size of the width of the screen, and then we'll join those with spaces, and then those with new lines. Hello, Yassine. How's it going? Just keeping on going with this implementation, trying to figure out what I'm possibly doing. And at this point, I need to make a method that will render stuff. I'm working on this render method that will render the current view into a buffer. I'm doing great. It was a nice long day, and this is the best way to relax. Steeping my brain into crazy Rust syntax. So let's see. I have this render method, and it's not implemented on anything yet. So let's try to do that. fn render. So we have a buffer, and I would like to, I think our buffer really only has one method on it, which is for writing into it, which is set car at, and it takes an X and Y position. And so we have to think from the perspective of our view, of our text view. We want to render ourselves into this buffer, but the question is like, where in this buffer? This buffer is a certain size, the size of the whole screen potentially, and it depends where this view is called. And what we're actually going to do is, instead of, I mean, we could just write it right at the start to begin with, which is fine, like the top left corner, I guess, just at sort of 0, 0. But we kind of want to pass along some kind of, we want to thread a rendering context down into our recursive render calls, because this might be called from somewhere higher inside of that padding node, for instance, and we wouldn't just want to draw it at 0, 0. We wouldn't start writing each of those characters, you know, like that, exactly starting from the top left corner. We'd want to maybe be indented a little bit by that border, that padding call. Would have wanted to somehow inset perhaps the rendering context. And so that rendering context can really just be a viewport or a rectangle. And this is also borrowed from my brief perusal of the TUI library. We're going to have a rect, and this is going to have a size, which we can reuse our size thing, but then we'll also make a point. I think I already made a point below. I made a very good point here, and I'll derive a bunch of stuff. I want to derive all this stuff for everything, because that's fun. Maybe not copy. Maybe copy's fine for that. Okay. And then we need to just implement render for everything. And so this render method will take, there it is. Instead of an area, it will take a rectangle, which is going to be the drawing context, actually. And we probably want some methods on this rectangle. Maybe one for insetting it by some amount. And let's see how this works. This is absolutely correct. Or if we have a rectangle or an area that is that, so it's whatever, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anyway, I won't worry exactly about measurements. But if we have that, and we want to say inset it by -1, the origin should move in by just 1 point. So move that upper left corner in by just 1. And then the height and width need to be moved in by -2 in each direction. So the current width minus inset times 2 minus inset times 2. Cool. And then I probably want to also do outset by and just do the opposite. Negate and add in the other direction. And definitely stop me if any of this is confusing. I'm just going to kind of run through it as quickly as I can, just for fun, until I get to something really weird or tricky. All right, so let's go to the render method here. So instead of taking an area, this will now take a rect, and I will use that rect now has an origin. It has an x and a y, which I actually want to sort of expose. I don't want to have to go through the point. So maybe I can just have an x method and a y method that'll access those inner points. I actually don't have a LinkedIn. I put that thing to sleep. I hate LinkedIn. You know, I resuscitate it every once in a while if I need a job, but for now it's sleeping, it's resting, hibernating, I believe is the official term. But I do have a Twitter. I think that's probably my most at my same name. It's probably linked to somewhere on my YouTube too. I don't know. That is DMs and such, and that's where I post the most. Not that I'm a huge Twitter person. Doing these streams every day has been my most exposure to any sort of social media in a while. But yeah, feel free to DM me there, or you can also send me an email if you'd like, if it's something that is email worthy, which is just my name at Gmail, basically. You can add actually as many dots as you want to that in Gmail, and it'll all send to the same account. You can even add a plus in the end and have a special keyword, I think. I think that's how Gmail works. Oh yeah, I should probably commit this or push this. I've made commits for the last 2 streams. But yeah, let's see. So I have this render method now. It takes a rect, and I need to find the text node, and now I have an x and a y, so that'll be our start. So I could say let mute, not var. I'm thinking of Scala, and I'll say yeah, that could just be x, and well, text right now is only on a certain line, so I'll just say let y equals rect.y, and then this is basically it for each character in self.text cars. Turns an iterator over cars. That's cool. Cars is an iterator. Cool. I like it. And for each car, we're going to set it at the x and y position and then add 1 to x. Now, the danger is that this text is too long. So I want to somehow make sure this does not go off. Ensure the text won't render off the rightmost edge of the buffer dot area. Rect.x max x if x is greater than max x. That looks reasonable, but I wonder, is there a terser, more idiomatic way of doing this? I should just copy that so I can write that all the time. Whoa, this seems a little silly. I guess that does make sense. I'm enumerating, which is going to get me the index. Yeah, that's probably fine. That seems less readable to me, actually. I will reject it. I'm sure there's another way of doing this that's better, but for now, sure. And I probably want to move, maybe I can put another method on buffer for writing a whole string into this thing, but let's just test it. Though before I test it, I need to fix the fact that these other things don't have render methods. So let's go to here, and let's see if what this is thinking. So I do want to, this is why we have this rendering context, this rect. So now we can inset it by the padding, basically. And we'll just make a smaller version like we sort of looked at here. The inner version would have been inset by 1. And then we're going to offer that to the child. That's its rendering context. So it'll start drawing itself from the new origin, which has been indented by 1. And it'll draw itself up to this smaller area. Ooh, actually, I just broke the other method I'm thinking about now, because I want this to draw not until the end of the, oh yeah, to the rect. It did it right, not the buffer size, but the, that is the max x is, yeah. I probably can do something like, let's do fn right. Yeah, and fn bottom. And then may as well just do top and left. In fact, I will just rename these methods to top and left. Oh, I did it backwards. Top. Oh, no, I have to do that. Oops. Left and top. Okay. And then that should be called down here. Good, good, good. And so max x is the right-hand side of the rectangle. And I believe that's 1 further. Yeah, it should stop if it even reaches that. That is the boundary itself. Cool. So I'm going to go back down to padding. And what next? So I've inset the thing. I'm telling the child to render at that thing. And yeah, I think that's pretty correct. And let me look at the size as well. The size will be, right now I'm just giving it the proposed size of the child, but no, I want to do the same logic. I want to inset the size. Ooh, I should probably compose these methods and have the same exact fn inset. No, this should return a size. And then fn outset, and then the other method can simply call outset by and inset by. So this IDE is called Cursor, and it's basically a fork of VS Code, except with a whole bunch of roided out AI integrations, which is, it's really good what they've done. And going back to other IDEs now that have just basic Copilot support, they have this thing called Copilot++, and it's very clever. But basically, it allows you to, so most of them, they just kind of autocomplete, like normal autocomplete, which is at your very exact cursor position. And they'll offer you, if I deleted this thing here, it would offer maybe write that to the end of the line, which is useful. It's cool. But this will actually, if I start to make a change here, it will offer similar changes on sort of a context around the line, and it can offer changes on multiple lines simultaneously. So if I say start deleting all the parentheses, maybe it'll get the clue there. That is invalid code though, so they probably wouldn't get the idea of that. So maybe if I say cool result, now it's going to offer, it's pretty cool, these 2 changes. First of all, it realized that I probably don't want to start that with a capital C. But it also realizes that result is used down here. So hitting tab will do that. And then it realizes all the way down here and tabs me there, which is pretty amazingly great. Like it just kind of figures out what you're doing. They must feed it a little bit of history, the context, and each change you're making. And the AI can use that to reason about, oh, what's he probably doing? Let's help him out there with just probably a very small context of like maybe just 10 lines or something around. I don't know how much context they give it, but holy mackerel, it's really, really good. And then you could just select any arbitrary amount of code and tell it to make a change there. And there's a chat interface where it can like look at your entire code base. It basically does embeddings everywhere, and it's nuts. Hey, Adam. Welcome back. How's it going? Just vouching for my AI, the AI overlords, saying how cool they are and won't they remember me when they're in charge. It's going okay. I'm mostly, streaming is less performant than the makers of FS2 would like you to believe. It turns out, but yeah, it's a lot of talking. We were working on this SwiftUI. I forget if you were here. I think you were here a few days ago. I'm not sure if I pivoted yet to actually rebuilding the terminal UI interface instead of making the terminal UI. That's kind of a pattern of mine. And before I can actually make the simple product, like instead of just making a slideshow for a presentation, I will write my own custom slide software. And then of course I'll need to make my own animation library yeah, it's a good way to learn. It's a really bad way to get anything done. So here I'm working on a SwiftUI inspired terminal DSL, and it's going okay. Exploring Rust and trying to get a decent looking DSL out of it. Exactly. It's pretty standard. It's the affliction we all share. Um, and where's my current nice ergonomics example? So ignoring all this chaos, I wish this were a little dimmer. I like how it shows you the types, but it's a little nasty. If you just focus on the blue stuff for a minute there, maybe if I delete, I can make that go away. Go away. Yeah, I'll get it to break, and then we could look at it. So it's not quite Scala. It's not quite laminar. This whole thing needs to be wrapped in a second pair of tuples. It's really kind of hard to see that, but it's like VStack, then two sets of tuples, and then I can have my view 1, view 2, view 3, because I can give a view instance to the tuple type, and that's kind of the hacky way of getting this thing to kind of do what I want it to do. And so we're working on this view syntax, and currently I'm working on a test for getting a render method to work. And yep, I need to make a rect. Let rect equals a rect that's the size of our terminal, and it begins at the origin. And may as well make an impl for point with an fn of 0. Well, in a sense, especially for a terminal rendering library, like literally printing to the console is how we're going to do everything, and including sending, commands to their crazy API that is a series of escape sequences. But that is that's basically what we're doing. Except, yeah, it's kind of hard to test terminal rendering libraries anyway. Actually, surprisingly, because you want to print trying to do it in Scala, because SBT runs as an interactive process and it like takes over and sets a bunch of crazy settings to your current terminal instance. It's basically impossible to like render a terminal application from within SBT. So you have to stage it every time, and it really slows down the cycle. This should be a little easier. So I'm making the rect, which is sort of the rendering context, and now I can use 0.0. And cool. It's an owned value. I think that's good. And then I'm rendering it into there, and then I'm printing the buffer as a string. I forget if I've done everything correctly. I need to implement it for this stack type, but I will just, have it be to do because I'm not using that yet. And then I will test this. I don't know what happened to my size. Let's see what happens. Fail. Do we get a nice diff? Okay. I'm not sure if I've implemented. I have. So nothing has happened. So the diff is there is no word rust there. So I wonder what part's failing. Oops, no, I wanted to close there we go. Let's see. Padded text node, that is indeed the thing that I want. I actually want to inline that. Why am I cloning it? Yes, let's inline you, and let's not clone you. You shouldn't need to be referred to. And I'll call this padded, text view. I'm making my buffer of 6 and 3. I'm taking that buffer and throwing it into the render method. And it is going to inset the child. And then it's going to render the child, which is a text node, which should start at the top left corner, which should be rendering text to position. Sure. Here I am. And now rect doesn't have a display to X, Y. There we go. I wasn't sure how I'd think about this format string syntax, but I kind of like it, actually. It's surprisingly nice, having never used one of these things before. It's a little annoying because you have to pair up which argument goes where, but it makes the text very readable. It would be kind of nice if you could toggle between the two views or somehow get a phantom imposed view. Hey, thank you, Jasmine. Yeah, that's my plan. I'm doing the same exact thing. Except I guess I have to talk more, but that's also a form of torture. So I'm glad they're relaxing. Awesome. Yeah, hopefully we can learn some Rust. It's a crazy language. I'm letting the AI teach me as I have it autocomplete things with abandon. Extremely chaotically. So yeah, so let's run this test again. It panicked again. Rendering text to X1, Y1. See, that seems like it's exactly the right position that I want it to be in. I don't like this giant panic trace. I might turn off, actually, I'm not sure if I can turn off the back trace in the auto terminal test. So anyway, it's rendering it to the right position. Where is the test? Come back to me. So why would that be the case? Rendering it there, I'm saying the max X is going to be the rectangle's right corner. If X is greater than max X break, there must be a problem with buffer set caret. Oh yeah, this looks like a weird. I had AI do this the other night, and this looks very suspicious. If X is less than the oh, this is totally wrong. Because I need to turn it into a point. Yes. Let point equals index to point. Oh, wait. Oh, vice versa. Oh, yes. Point to index. I don't want it like this. I want it like X, Y. And there we go. Then I can get myself an index equals point to index. And then if, yes, maybe if the rows, some row. Yeah, this is totally wrong. I don't even know what it's doing. I'm going to have it try again, my friend. This isn't a row, that would be a cell. This is a cell. And I think I can just... Oh, yes, because I think it thinks that these are each individual characters. Oh, it's probably because I said the 2D array. The one-dimensional array of cells in the screen. A 2D array flattened. Conceptually flattened. Or flattened in existence. So that's probably confusing the AI because my comments are lying to it. I feel bad for misleading it like that. So try it again. That's it. Exactly. That looks more correct. I can just turn the character into a string and set that right there. I'm gonna run the test again. And it passed. Yes. Amazing. Rendering text to XY. Definitely not probably the right way to do this. But that worked. So I'm gonna keep being rewarded. I wish I could put this on one line, but it wants to pop back out. Very aggressive formatting, which is cool actually. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Round of applause to GPT 4.0. So okay, so padded text is good. Next would be, let me see if I can clean this up at all, because this is going to get quite verbose if I keep doing this. Maybe I'll do 6 or 3 and 6. And then I'll just say buffer.size.clone. So that'll tighten it up slightly. And then I'm creating a buffer. Rendering into it, turning the buffer into a string. Yeah, okay, that's fine for now. I'm going to duplicate the test. And we will say, or I'll just delete it and say test vstack of texts. And there's a vstack of some texts. I will do hello world. And then yes, a bunch of exclamation points. That's fine with me. Ooh, and it really likes to flatten it. I'll get used to that. And then the width should probably be, if these are both 5 characters, this should probably be 5 characters as well. So I'll make the width 5 and the height 3. Actually, my theory here is that I can have this be really big. Oh, this is a buffer actually. Yeah, the buffer is important. I'll test 2 things at once. So I'm going to go back to size real quick and make a new constructor called, I already have one called max, which is gigantic. So one of the features of Swift's views algorithm, which I'm copying here, is sort of the size that this view will want. We can actually kind of ask the view itself by saying vstack size and then giving it size max. And then that will determine how much size we need. And hopefully, basically size and render should agree with one another. And I'm not going to put any code inside of the buffer that makes sure I don't write outside of the bounds, because if I implement render correctly, I shouldn't need to do that. So I'm going to have the buffer just panic and explode or whatever if we try to write out of bounds to an array. That's the plan. So starting at point 0, cloning the buffer size now, which is the correct thing. Or I can just use the size here. Exactly. I could also, I think, use the maximum size. No, I'll do the buffer size. Okay, a little weird. Anyway, so now I would expect it to be hello world and then bang, bang, bang on 3 different lines, all joined together. And that will not work yet because it'll panic because I haven't implemented that. So I'll jump down to I'll get rid of this note and find my stack type, which is here. So it has children, which is one of these view tuple traits, which is just a tuple of views that we give a method to get each one out of. And then a direction, because this will be either vstack or hstack. And in this case, we're testing horizontal layout. I will switch on the direction to start with. Eventually, we can be clever and write methods that let us switch inside. I'm just going to panic inside of the horizontal area. And then we can think about exactly what we want to do naively here. So if I have a vstack of text, hello world, and I have a certain rectangle, well, we need 2 methods, actually. I also haven't done size yet. So I will also match on direction, horizontal, I will panic, And for direction, we will do something else. So let's start with size. Nope, don't need anything there. Panic. Ah. Ah. Okay. So how much size should this view take up? And horizontally, it should take up basically the max of any of these words. So hello there. Ding ding. Yeah, hello there, Johnny. Whatever. We'll keep it really simple. So the max should be 11 characters, and then the height, basically however many, the sum of the heights should determine the size of this thing. So for direction vertical, width equals max of child widths, and height equals sum of child heights. So I will use that thinking and then let the AI do the hard work. And in order to learn Rust, we can review what it's done, which is it created two mutable variables. Then it called this for each method on the children, which will yield each child one at a time, a reference to each child one at a time, a borrowed child, if you will, one at a time. And then we'll get the size of each child using its, because each child is a view. And we will max the current, max width with the height, and set the total height, just sum it basically. So that totally works for me. I'm not sure if there's a better way of doing this. This is where I will, select this and say, can you make this terser and more idiomatic, please? And we'll see if it does anything interesting. And oh, now it's folding over the children, which isn't a terrible idea, except I haven't written that method, which I probably could do as an extension method, but I don't know if that would be valuable right now. Maybe I'll make a note to do implement fold for view tuple, and we'll see what happens. Anyway, there's that, and now knowing that that should work, let us actually implement this thing. So I basically want to, in this case, I think I want to sort of start Y. Yeah, get the top of the rectangle, indeed, and then render each child, then increment Y by the height of the child, indeed. And then also, I think I want the rect that I give it to have the starting value of, I need it to move down. Every subsequent child is going to have less room to render itself. So we'll offer the first one all 3 spaces in case it has a larger height. But then once we say we do render the first child and it takes up 2 rows, well, then we'll have 2 fewer rows to offer to each subsequent child. And the Swift view algorithm does a whole bunch of other stuff, allowing different views to have different flexibilities. Maybe we have a view here that mystery view, which is cool, rendering itself either with a height of 1 or up to a maximum of 20 or something. Or maybe we have another view that like needs to be at least 3 lines. And so there's some clever algorithm we can implement later, which will allow us to sort of prioritize these views by how much room they require, and then make sure everybody is happy. But we're not going to worry about that right now. I just need to figure out something that works. So there is no proposed size. The proposed size will be the rect to begin with. A rect.size. Let me think, actually. Do I need to? I don't need to call the child size method. I don't know why I'm doing that. Oh, I do, because I need to give it I need to figure out how much room it took. which means that, in fact, I probably need to do the same algorithm here, where once I do size a child, I need to sort of offer less room to each subsequent child. But I'm not going to. I think that doesn't matter here. To do offer less room to each subsequent child. Think about hard algorithm. Okay. But in this case, I will certainly need to do something. So let's go up to the rect implementation and make sure, well, maybe first I'll implement it here. So I want to sort of shave off the top of each of this. Let rect equals a new rect where it's going to have left. The y will indeed be the top, but then the size should, this is going to be some awful code that I'm writing, and I'll clean it up in a moment. The rect size height is not going to be the child's height. I guess it would be. No, I need to subtract. I sort of need to know the starting y. The starting y, and then subtract from this the amount that it's moved, which will be the difference in y. So if it started at point 0 and moved down to line 5, welcome. I'm doing something truly awful right now, but let me show you what we're building, especially because I think it technically compiles now, and maybe it's correct. Welcome, Amaro. Thanks for being here. Okay, it exploded. Attempt to subtract with overflow. So yeah, definitely that blew it up. Let me just do, let me just keep the size as it is, because I don't think that'll matter in this case. Rect.size, and then we can look at something that doesn't blow up, hopefully, unless it blows up for another reason. Hey, it worked. No, that's the wrong test anyway. Oh no, it does work. Sweet, cool. So we are attempting to build a terminal UI library in Rust and sort of copy the ergonomics as best we can of SwiftUI, which is written in Swift, which is a much higher level language. But I wanted this DSL of being able to lay out some things vertically. So if I say vstack of text hello world text, this should render into hello world, right? Each one on a new line. And there are other features as well, such as padding, which I've done here. So if I say text and then call dot padding on it with a padding of 1, it will get 1 padding around each side and render itself to this this buffer. And eventually that'll be printed to the screen, and that'll all look really shiny. At least that's the idea. The initial goal was to build a CLI app or a terminal UI app that actually did something and use somebody else's terminal UI library, but I got too excited by the possibility of writing my own, because I like SwiftUI syntax, and I did not enjoy so much the rendering syntax of this other library, which did not have that declarative tree structure sort of lexically visible to me. And it made me sad and confused. So I was like, let me actually pivot and replace that. So yeah, that's the idea. And also, I don't really know Rust, so the idea is to also let AI generate a bunch of stuff and try to learn from it. And in the process of doing that, and I learned a few things so far. Yeah. So cool. That test passes. Sort of. We probably want to do something more interesting. So create a test for vstack of text A, and then I'm going to have text B, but this is going to have a padding of 1 and then a text C. And this should actually look like, if I'm thinking correctly, well, it depends on how we want to align this stuff too. This is actually, there's so much to think about. Should VStack organize its kids vertically? If so, it should look like this, because B is the one with sort of the padding around it. There we go. That's B's positioning. And then if they're aligned vertically, yeah, I think the easiest thing to start with would be a horizontal alignment. So that is what we're going to go for to start with. And eventually to do, allow for different alignment options. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's pretty fun. I don't know. I hope I can make something cool here. I definitely am a little scared of some of the code I'm going to have to write. And I've committed to stumbling, stumbling through in front of other people watching, but we'll see what happens. But luckily, I have AI to do this stuff. So I will say, write a test for this, please. It's important to be polite. And it did it, which is great. Copying from the example above, there's a bit of boilerplate here, but it'll take our view, then it'll create this is going to be the true test, actually. I want to, well, let me run this. This might just work, and it did, which is great. So that means we've done something correct. It rendered this out, which is pretty cool. It will certainly break when we start doing fancier things, or giving it less room to render than it wants. Currently, I'm offering this view as much size as it needs, and then constructing the buffer based on however much size it asked for, essentially. But eventually, this is going to be determined by the size of the terminal window. And so certain things will have to squash. If our terminal was only this big, we would probably want, I don't know, either this part wouldn't get rendered, or we'd have to decide. Maybe we'd have some way of saying that, oh, well, the B would like a padding vertically, but if you don't have the room, I'd rather lose that vertical padding than lose the other words. So there's a whole bunch of interesting methods and combinators we can write for this view DSL. It's a very simple and powerful one. SwiftUI is really, it's very impressive what they did. Really, truly genius work over there. But I will try to copy it as best I can. Hey, Matt. I do not know what is sloppy from latex. Latex. I've never done a resume in latex. LaTeX. It's LaTeX, right? I'd be embarrassed if I said latex. Should I be embarrassed? I feel embarrassed. The sloppy command is used to adjust the typesetting of paragraphs to prevent overfull and under. My God, I love typesetting terminology. Underfull. When you use sloppy, latex becomes more lenient with spacing and hyphenation, allowing for more flexible line breaks. Oh, cool. Yeah, basically we need dot sloppy. And to do Fournier, is it Fournier? Fournier? Implement /sloppy. We'll have to figure out what that means, but I'll keep that here. But I'm pretty happy that that works. Sweet. Are you French Canadian, or just Frenchian, pure French? Yeah, it's hard to say. I should die. Let's see if the how do you pronounce how shameful. Latex. Oh my God, latex or latex, but there's certainly no. The ch at the end is pronounced like the ch of the Bach. Oh, latex. All right, latex or latex. Gosh. So yeah, I got both syllables wrong. How embarrassing. Wait a sec, which is a voiceless velar fricative? Implement a voiceless velar fricative. Actually, I could implement voiceless velar fricative. How do you pronounce that now? Now it's just recursive. How do you pronounce velar? Where's my SpongeBob case? Oh, yeah, let's have some fun. Test text. Will you marry me? Dot SpongeBob case. Ah, come back. It's gone. All right. I'm bad at certain things. Okay, let's see. Implement a test for this, please. God damn, that's impressive. Oh, it failed. Oh, it got it. Oh, it got it slightly wrong. Wow, that's unfortunate. I wonder if I can jump up to the implementation of SpongeBob Cased, which I had it do the other day, and say, please fix this based on this test output. Fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it. It fixed it. That's crazy. Hey, Stuart squared! I'm streaming again. My streaming sister. Uh, my streaming brother. Yeah, I don't know how it figured out what it did wrong and fixed that. Yeah, please come join me. I'm in the Rust realm. I don't know if you've ever explored that. I'm just feeling around, throwing my AI minions ahead of me into the abyss, and they're doing okay. They're writing some really great Rust code. But yeah, it's good to see you. And yeah, Matthew, it's all of our tiny little Twitter world, plus some extra friends. So, well, that's exciting. Uh, oh yeah, I was gonna have it implement this, but I don't really know how that would even what that would entail. Voiceless velar fricative. Please implement this. Sorry, please implement this correctly. First, define this term, give examples, and annotate your code, ensuring that it morally is morally correct in its implementation. The voiceless velar fricative is a type of consonantal sound used in some spoken languages. The symbol is in the International Phonetic Alphabet that represents this sound as X, trapped behind bars. It is produced by constricting the airflow through a narrow channel at the base of articulation. That sounds so intense, causing turbulence. So intense. The sound is found in languages such as German, like Bach, and Russian, Bach. Oh, okay, so it's going to replace ch with the that. All right, they tried. Bach. We'll keep it around. I'm not going to write a test for that though. I'll get back to serious streaming work here. Okay, so yeah, we have some rendering stuff going on. I would like horizontal tests. So yeah, where's the serious one? Implement a test with alternating H stack and V stack nodes. Do this. That does not look correct. Oh, H stack of V stack. Hmm. Have the outside. Anyway, let me I'll determine my own testing here. Basically, we just need a test for V stack. Where is that? Why is that sad? Oh, I need a semicolon. Okay. Not a colon, a semicolon. Thank you. And then, yay, I love autocomplete. That is totally not correct. It needs to be separate lines of B and then C, D, E. Oh, and it put padding around it. I don't need padding right now. And then F. I think that's what I want. Let's run the test. And it'll break because I don't have a support for HStack yet. And this is getting pretty ugly as well. Let mute max width equals 0. Max height equals 0. And then really is the width is the sum of the child widths, and the height is the max of the child heights. Oh, semicolons. I will just never get used to writing those. I really don't like that decision of their language here. Basically, instead of having a return keyword, you just leave off a semicolon. I guess the syntactic pun there is that this value is able to escape. It's not sort of, you're not putting a book separator or something against it, just weighing it down with a paperweight of the semicolon. A little too clever. I'd rather have no semicolons and have an explicit return and just like map one thing into the other, and there you go. Or be like Scala and have everything just be returned. But I get for their language, maybe they want to be more explicit about that. And that's fine too. But just no semicolons. But I guess that'll never happen. And then for this, I can let's start X. You know what, actually? I think if I put this beneath this other method, it'll have a much better time of figuring that out. That's something I figured out about using these. Oh, is it actually using start X here? Oh, yeah, it is, but that's kind of silly. And in fact, I'm never using start Y. So let me make sure this makes sense. Yes, it does. I'm just doing the same thing except going in the other direction. My favorite language at the moment, great question, is certainly Scala 3. I love Scala so much. It's just beautiful. And there's Scala JS, which lets you make crazy applications. So I don't even have to touch JavaScript or TypeScript. It's so powerful. And I'm sure I will eventually stream something in that. But I just know it's my everyday language, and I've built so many things in it that I sort of just want to explore other waters and stretch my brain, see what the hype is about when Rust. I think in a couple of videos ago, I justified my explorations. But yeah, Scala 3, ooh, so good. Also, I like a lot about Swift as well. But yeah, I feel some pain there. The type system in Scala 3 is just so powerful. And of course, it's garbage collected, which makes it easy to write things. You don't have to think about all of these concerns. But it's also kind of hard to get started with because it's just such a big language and fairly old at this point. I mean, not Scala 3, but Scala in general. There's just so much baggage, and it also has all the baggage of the JVM. So it's kind of nice to learn a newer language that has less history and more opinionation. Oh yeah, result being the opposite to either and match being the opposite order constantly trips me up. Yes. In Scala, match comes after the thing, which is certainly an interesting decision, but it's really nice. My argument for it would be like, usually you want to type the thing and then you realize you want to match on it. And wait, does that work? No, it doesn't work. Does it? Certainly no, okay. And then you're offered an autocomplete at that point. It can't really offer you the autocomplete if you haven't typed in the thing yet. I mean, it can. It totally can. But notice how this, theoretically, Rust Analyzer should know all of the different definitions of direction because it's an enum. And it should be showing me right now, I would argue, self.direction, all of the, it should say, like, would you like to exhaustively complete this? But it doesn't. And maybe it will if I first type it all in and then I can say fill match arms, sure. But the nice thing about it syntactically is that it works really nicely because like it can figure out what you're doing and it knows the thing you want to match on and then offer it to you. I mean, nothing is preventing either way. I guess I'm just justifying Scala's thing. We get it. That's a little tricky to put it on the other side. At least they're using match and not switch. And at least this is an expression and you can actually return values from this. In TypeScript, matches are not expressions. You cannot say let X and then have a switch statement. You have to do some crazy things. And I cannot deal with languages that do not have, you need if-else expressions, you need match expressions, and most importantly, you need sum types, which are their enums. So they have those three things. I can tolerate Rust. And not just like the normal flat enum, but I could also have a third case here called interdimensional, which I have some kind of vortex quotient and whatever of some other type. Like you can have values in here, I think. Can they not have names? Oh yeah, because this would have to have, that's the braces, right? So that makes it a sum type where you can have different, basically structs nested. It can be exhaustively enforced by the compiler. It knows how many cases there are. It's beautiful. Iflet is weird with binding rules sometimes, but I miss it in Scala. Oh yeah. The iflet, that is kind of cool. I do agree. That is nice to have that as an option. Scala should steal that. Yeah, the combination if. Yeah, like a one-off case match or something. I guess you could implement that fairly trivially as like an extension method that takes a partial function, but it's I never do because it's not built in, and that would be confusing to all my coworkers, and probably myself. Yeah, it is nice to have. I don't know. It's nice to read. It's not nice to write. Also, I like this, what they've done here. Metals and IntelliJ should steal that and just automatically put that at the end of each indentation block. I haven't seen that yet. But this is kind of why I'm learning Rust, just seeing what it does well, and then, I don't know, being sad that Scala doesn't have those things. And, talking to, when I get coffee with Odersky one day in heaven, I will tell him all the mistakes he's made. Anyway, so there's so much duplication here, and like the question is, what do we do? Do we have to think about this, or do I tell AI to fix this somehow? Can you come up with a clever way to abstract the duplication here? Boo, 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 boo. Probably not, but that would be cool. Yeah, all right. Hey, not so bad. It needs a width and a height. And really, the idea here that they differ, like these are both the same, so I don't know what that's about. That's kind of cool that I can do that crazy thing. Define multiple mutable variables. Fancy. And then for each child, the only difference here is basically which argument I am changing. And so the question would be, I mean, this works. And this is probably actually fine for now. But we could add a method, pull out a method that maybe if I had this as a mutable size type, horizontal and vertical could know how to adjust things. I don't want to factor this out too much because like these methods are going to get way crazier. Let's see if we could do this one. Try to factor out the duplication. somehow. I challenge you. Also brag in the comments about how smart you are and explain why you're so clever. Do. So far, no sly asides. I bet this has been trained to just dump out code. The transformation directive is much less clever. But yeah, that seems to work. Let's run our tests again. Failed. Oh, because I haven't oh, interesting. That's actually not so bad. I think I'd never ran that test in the first place, and I might have. Yeah, there's no spaces. There wouldn't be any spaces. Do. And yeah, oh, there would be some spaces after those because of the way the buffer rendering works. And I kind of want to put that on multiple lines, and I have to lock them in place with comments, otherwise the formatter will revert that. Those comments were like 3 trees. Yeah, what the heck? Well, yeah, it failed. Yeah, I wrote that. But hey, cool. Pretty cool. This is definitely not complete yet, especially once these things, as I mentioned, don't have enough space, but it is kind of working in this simple case, which is pretty neat. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for like an hour and 15 minutes. I might say this is a good breaking point. It's getting a little later here, so I should probably wind down, not get too hyped up with my new streamer lifestyle. But thanks for stopping by, everybody. Again, that was really fun. And yeah, it's been great hanging out, Matt. If you ever want to join me sometime, if you want audio powers, I'm happy to have you as a textual heckler, but you're free to join in. Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks for stopping by, Jasmine. Nambu from the beginning, from second zero. And LB. Oh, Thoughts on Elixir. I've been trying it out. That was like my second language, and I liked it back then. It was definitely cool. Yes, it's different. The OTP thing is wild. All that hot reloading stuff. The syntax is a little wacky. Their atoms thing is a little wacky, where you prefix a string with a colon and then it becomes like a binary embedded static string thing. I don't exactly know. I haven't done it in years, but it's fun to mess around with message passing and actors. Highly recommend, I guess. I haven't used it very much. It's not like my favorite language or anything, but it'll be if you're tempted, you'll definitely learn something. And with that, I return to the night. Bye, everybody. Take care.